By the time, like I said, I've been to Kenya once since 2018, and it was because I had to go to a funeral in 2019. Haven't been back. Just need $1,500, and then I'll be sorted. And then you're back to trying to make it happen in a much different way than when you did the first time. But it's a traumatic event. Like I said, I know many guys whose marriages were tested extremely. So there's many things you question. The resolve, the partnerships, the reality of whatever it is you think is the norm. All those things get tested.
Is there something, Kimani, is there something called returnee trauma? You had alluded to this, where someone leaves the US, struggles in Kenya, and then comes back feeling disconnected from both worlds. Kimani.
Mpaka anasema Fiji is a tourist destination.
Yes, Kenya is Fiji.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The trauma is real. The trauma is real. When you have a certain degree of certainty in what you're trying to do, and then you're wrapped up proper mpaka even now you start questioning what decision process did you have to take that decision. It's a traumatic event. I couldn't talk about this stuff in 2019. I was still here. Let me get my thoughts together. It was a process that tried me greatly. Like I said last time, my mom thought I had sold my US citizenship and my passport or something, and which is why I was still enduring what Kenya had to offer. It's something that you go through, and then you can either come out of the other side better, or just come out and just say, you know what, now we'll just do whatever it is that's necessary to retire comfortably. And if that retirement is $1,500 a month, that's enough money to move back to Kwale and call it a day. So you come back and you show up your reserves and you say, all right, from what I learned, I just need $1,500 and then I'll be sorted. And then you're back to trying to make it happen in a much different way than when you did the first time. But it's a traumatic event. Like I said, I know many guys whose marriages were tested extremely. So there's many things you question. The resolve, the partnerships, the reality of whatever it is you think is the norm. All those things get tested, and you lose faith in a lot of things. By the time, like I said, I've been to Kenya once since 2018, and it was because I had to go to a funeral in 2019. Haven't been back. Not that I don't travel. I've been to Dubai enough times, etc.
Wow.
And Fiji is on the agenda because I don't feel I need to go through that process in an environment that is questionable in how it looks at the black tourist or the Kenyan tourist for that matter. You are somewhat undervalued. If you ever go to a golf course, there's a great experience you'll always find. Huh? You go to a golf course. If, for example, some diplomat plate car comes along and these Odieros who are coming to play golf, man, those caddies rush to that car like there's no tomorrow. You the Nyeudis, you'll just get whoever was next in line. And that's the experience. So you start wondering, if I go to Jamaica, they don't have that problem. Guys you'll find in Montego Bay or Chorrillos or wherever, they look at you as bringing substantial dollar reserves that they need. They treat you with respect. They treat you with humility. It's a great experience. Why am I going back to the situation that says, where nani car kando? We are waiting for the mudogo that's gonna come in some car with red plates. Acha. I'll go play golf elsewhere.
You know, that is quite interesting, and I think with Kenya, there's that familiarity where I think people subconsciously do not realize, and it's not like diasporans are asking for special treatment, but I think it's where people don't realize that the amount of dollars this person is bringing is probably equal to what that Mzungu will give you or even more. So there's a failure to realize that, because when you think about it, all the Kenyans who are here, all the monies that we have that could have been invested in Kenya, but people are opting not to. because of all this maltreatment that we get. Because remember, at the end of the day, we have vested interest in wanting Kenya to succeed. We have, a permanent vested interest. It's not even temporary. It's a permanent vested interest. And it's the same way that KQ treated Kenyans when they first came and started marketing the flight from the US to Kenya. And their poor results right now are showing they had to reduce the number of flights that are coming from the US to Kenya from every day to, I think, is it 3 or 4 days a week, when what they could have very easily done is what Ethiopia did when they started here in the, I think it was the mid-90s. They focused on their people. Focus on your people. Then if there's other people who are interested in that route, you're like, oh, it seems this group is also interested. Let's also get them. And that's how America works. America doesn't necessarily even sometimes build things for tourists. They build things for Americans. Then if you're a tourist and you like it, then you also come. They build Las Vegas for Americans. Then if you're Indian or Haitian or Fijian and you like whatever you're seeing there, it's good. So I think Kenya has failed to understand that it is okay to build red carpets for diasporans, because they're also coming to spend money, and they're vested. They're not coming once a year or once in 5 years like these other visitors. These are people who are gonna keep coming back. These are recurring clients. But there's a total failure of seeing that. An interesting question here coming from Washeke. Washeke is asking, Kimani, do you feel cathartic after sharing your experience on the show? Whatever cathartic means. I will pretend I know it.
It's big English for sane. Let's see what he says.
Okay. Sawa. If you do understand what cathartic is, Kimani, talk to us.
The feeling in talking about this is just to help someone else have a better understanding of what to expect. Like I said before, I wish you guys were around in 2013 as you're researching, going back, and you have this outlet sharing examples of what's going on. It gives you a better perspective. It makes the move that much more meaningful, because you'll already have, well, even if you haven't experienced it, you had someone who has, and so you will not be as green as, wait, someone didn't say green, they said I was naive. That was a comment that came from someone that I thought was
you've been keeping tabs.
Yeah,
I do, because the criticism and some of the supporting statements have been so interesting, in terms of how people perceive these things. But something you're alluding to in terms of like KQ treating Kenyans, with some kind of respect. Anytime I go eat out and it's, let's say, an Indian or a Chinese restaurant or whatever, I want to look and see inside if there's locals. Because I think if there's some Indian guys eating in an Indian restaurant, it's as authentic as it gets.
yes.
But for some reason, we scramble to try and get others and ignore ourselves. And this happens at KQ, this happens at government levels and everything. Just by the sheer volume of amounts of money the diaspora remittances to Kenya on a monthly, annual basis, it should be enough where, come on, man, we should be doing a lot better. And kudos to the guys in LA. They've been to the Phoenix area a few times and helped guys with birth certificates and passports and all that. But we need a lot more of that, man. It needs, I don't know who's that PS person in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs on Diaspora Affairs. I don't know who they are, or if they ever leave the country to go elsewhere to talk to who their constituents should be. So there's a lot more that could be getting done. There's just so much money from diaspora remittances that there needs to be a lot greater dealing with guys out here. The services are just woefully inadequate for the amount of investment that goes into Kenya.
Yes, and you mentioned the the State Department in charge of diaspora affairs. They're doing business in a very terrible way. It feels like, and this is just now my opinion, in case some of you go tell them this is what the One Mic Show. It's not the One Mic Show, it's Ali who's saying it. I think they're not reaching the grassroots.
Omosh, what is that disclaimer?
They're not properly reaching.
Ali, no, Omosh, what is that disclaimer?
Okay, give the disclaimer.
The opinions said here are solely Ali's and have nothing to do with the One Mic Show.
Thank you kindly.
Okay,
Carry on,
all
Ali.
right. Okay, thank you for the disclaimer. So the State Department of Diaspora Affairs is doing business very poorly in that they're not reaching the grassroots, and they're doing business in a way where it seems like also they're campaigning. Like in every engagement, they're interested in collecting information.
100%.
Yes. So like here in the DMV, you'd hear that like there's a meeting, like at the Reagan building or something, and they have not contacted the stakeholders who are in touch. And I'm not saying necessarily us. It could be anyone. They've
Kenyans
not
are the
contacted the
stakeholders.
stakeholders who are in touch with Kenyans on a regular basis. So I think, it is very problematic, and there's no proper way of reaching them. And then when you reach them, they'll say it was on the embassy website. It was on this
It was
Twitter
in a chat
page.
group.
No one goes to that website.
It was in a chat group.
I'm telling you right now, no one goes to that website. No one goes to that Twitter page.
See, there was something that happened last Thursday. Was
Yeah,
it 2 Thursdays ago?
No, they were hawking bonds. They've been going state to state.
It's an
they were hawking
it's
bonds.
an
The one that,
investment
Yes. The one in DC.
at the Reagan
Yeah.
building.
Yeah, they were giving it, like a sophisticated face. And
No, I did not even know that there was anything until somebody said that there was something.
where CBK was involved, and I think also.
No, I don't know about.
Yeah, CBK was
CBK was
involved.
there.
Oh,
CBK
really?
was there.
Yes.
They were hawking bonds. Let me put it
Yes.
simple.
They called
were-
it an investment.
Yeah,
Diaspora investment.
They
blah, blah.
clocked it in something very fancy, but they were hawking bonds to Kenyans. I think they've been in Seattle. I don't know if they're going there. They've been going state to state because right now
And,
they have exhausted, like their sources. And remember, this is debt. Remember, bonds is debt to the government. At the moment, right now, of every 100 shillings that is collected in tax revenue, I think we are at 70 something, kama tujafika 80 bado, that we are paying in debt. Like before you get any money for development, any money for recurrent expenditure, 70 bob, shwap, inaenda kulipa deni. Think about it this way. If you earn $100,000 a year and $70,000 straight is going towards credit card debt. Before you pay rent, before you do anything else. That is the situation Kenya is in. And those are the bonds you guys are so proudly buying. When you lose money, call me at 1-800-MTEULE for a crying shoulder. Yeah. But anyway, again, the disclaimer again, Omosh.
The thoughts that have just been circulated over here have nothing to do with the One Mic Show. They are solely Mteule's.
Okay, thank you so much. All right. In case there's any lawyers who are thinking of suing the show or anything, so that's the situation. Some quick comments here that were coming in on Facebook. Washeke was also saying, also in Europe, they're trying to move away from Visa and the MasterCard system.
I saw that.
Yes, then Nyambura and Njoroge was asking, does Ghana have a CMA like Kenya? I think Nyambura means the Capital Markets Authority. I am not sure, but I believe they do, but I stand corrected.
Similar.
They might have something similar. Kenya and Ghana are structured in a Ghana in a very similar way. And then Washeke says Kimani that we've already read. And then Tieno Jimbo says familiarity breeds contempt. Wahenga walinena and Sile Unomaik. If Kenyans were going to value diasporans, they would have based on the remittances that keep the Kenyan economy running, but they won't because of that familiarity. And then Samingure says, this is what authenticity looks like, my friends. This dude is sharing real life. Mambo ni mob hapa. Washeke anasema, when the president was in the US, we learned there is a diaspora representative in Atlanta. Haven't heard anything from them since. We never knew who they were. And even after that meeting, we've never heard from them ever since, whoever that...
They moved back from Atlanta.
Yeah, whoever that representative is. Yeah, but again, the disclaimer...
Everything that has just been spewed forth from the verbal diarrhea reg is all solely from one Mujiku. Sio Sisi Watua One.
Umasema Mojiko.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Okay, good. Now, Preston here is saying, can you also feature people who returned successfully, meaning returned to Kenya? And we've always said, we're going to say this
Shut
again.
up, Omosh.
No, we're going to say this again. If you have any, whatever you define as success, if you have a success story, someone who's lived in the US at least 15 years, has been in Kenya
Don't put those
for at
parameters.
least 10 years.
No, just let them
Okay.
just throw the pass.
Somebody who is
so
successful
throw a pass on at us.
akuje.
Yeah, okay.
Somebody who has
Let's
moved
put it
from
that
here,
way.
moved back home,
Sawa.
and is doing okay.
Yeah.
Yani hajarudi.
Yes.
Because success, it seems, is being measured by somebody.
By
getting-
someone who stayed. Because some
yes,
people are calling Kimani a failure because he came back.
because he came back.
So they call
And he
that,
stayed for 5 years.
yeah, and he stayed for 5 years.
Yes.
So could give us those people who stayed for those 5 or
Give
10
us
years.
one.
Yeah, just
Just
give us
one first.
Yes.
Then
Give
we
us
can
one.
we can
Let's-
we can chambua.
Wacha tuone hata kama si stayed for 5. Wacha tuone who's gonna agree to come and talk. Who
Yes.
lived here for a substantive amount of time and moved back home and is now thriving, have stayed, and
Yeah.
they're willing to talk.
And then
Hiyo tu.
Wairimu Nderito anasema exactly, Ali, Kenya is so uncomfortably similar to Ghana's situation. And if you want to know what's going to happen to Kenya, just look at what happened in Ghana. Because Kenya, we are on the way there. It's similar things that led Ghana there. So, yeah, just find out what happened to Ghana. And then Wairimu Father says, I really respect Kimani's candidness. I know many who went back home but returned to the US chini ya maji. Thank you so much, Kimani. And then I can see Joy saying the problem is we Africans suspect each other. If you visit site as a black tourist, you get suspected as surveying for a break-in later. Which is very true. This happens a lot.
Yeah.
And then Joseph says, Kimani, thanks for the experience. I was in Sedona during na hiyo sentence akumaliza. Joe anasema Kenya and Africa kwanza. And then PWCHR anasema Kimani is that guy. Sisi wengine hapa just brave on the keyboard, but seriously, your words will shape a lot of everyone's plans for Kenya, which is very true.
100%.
And then Upper Sun 481 anasema investing in the total US stock market can yield returns on the conservative side of 10% minimum. Afadhali that, then Kenyan bonds with a 10% yield and a devaluing shilling. So when you factor in the devaluing shilling, when you factor in inflation, which is higher in Kenya than in the US, when you factor in the fact that the dollar is being devalued against, like other global currencies, your 10% very easily gets to 2% or even 1%. But because that 10 number is shiny, sometimes they'll even give you 12 and they'll give it a fancy name like infrastructure bond. Yeah. This is, this is the reality of what you're dealing with. Meaning someone who over those 10 years just kept, for example, like sterling pounds or euros under a mattress may have more money than you. I'm sorry if I'm revealing this to you now. And those who want to see the numbers, 1-800 Mteule.
Disclaimer.
Disclaimer.
The sentiments that have just been given out are solely Mujikua Masai's.
All right. Thank you kindly.
Okay. Okay, sawa. And then our Rimo says, for anyone who doesn't understand bonds, it's you lending money to the money-hungry Kenyan government. And then Wangoi is saying, with the rising land rates and land rent costs, the depreciating shilling, it is even practical to consider.
Is it even practical?
Is it even practical to consider a permanent move to Kenya? That's a question that Wangoi is asking.
This is another Ali.
Yes. And then, I mean, the reality, Wangoi.
Ini ile 15 nini?
Yeah.
Fingers.
Yes.
Wangoi ni Ali.
Oh, Wangoi is another Ali.
Wangoi
But
ni Ali.
how can I be typing and
No,
on
Wangoi
a
ni
pseudo
Ali.
account and also running the show?
Second
you guys
account
kweni wapole.
on the same day.
Yeah.
We don't want to do the disclaimer again, but carry on.
Yes, and then and then also remember the shilling at 130 is being artificially held. remember we have an election year next year, and remember what happens in next year. Don't be surprised to see the shilling at 170 or even 200.
Yes. We've been there,
and that's gonna wipe out all those nice infrastructure bonds that you guys have. Anyway, we're gonna talk about that later. The Trish to TV anasema feature won Odidi. He has lived in the US for many years, but frequently travels to Kenya to oversee projects that he has built. A beautiful house in Kisumu, and is always encouraging people to follow suit. I've been following his YouTube page, Wonodidi. I think Omosh is the one who introduced me to him.
He's a very interesting cat.
Very
and,
interesting.
And he tells it as it is.
Yes.
Very,
very interesting. Yeah. Very, very interesting. And then the other comment here from Washeke is when the president was in the US, we already read that. And then Washeke further says in the last 10 years, the Kenyan shilling has lost approximately 40% against the US dollar. So that's just something to bear in mind, that most people do not factor in.